2021 might not have been the best year for coasters, specifically because of plenty of delays, but one coaster that really managed to stand out among the rest is VelociCoaster at Universal's Islands of Adventure. This is what most people now call the best coaster in Florida. Generally, people say this is one of the best coasters on Earth. What I really want to know is VelociCoaster a perfect roller coaster? The concept of a perfect roller coaster is something that people have debated for years now, and there's always been a bunch of contestants for what the perfect roller coaster could be. Everything from Fury 325, Steel Vengeance, Hagrid's Magical Creatures Motorbike Adventure even, and maybe something like Fly. It all depends on what you're looking for. Is it grace? Is it intensity and airtime? Is it a great theming experience, or is it all of it mixed together? Maybe the perfect coaster just hasn't even been built yet. Of course, it's very much based on subjective and objective criteria. There are many different things you can look at in order to actually judge what the perfect coaster is. I've asked loads of people personally and from the theme park review community actually what they think might make the perfect roller coaster. And based on that, I want to look at what I probably think is the currently best contestant for the title, VelociCoaster. Now, what actually makes the perfect roller coaster? There are many different criteria to consider. The first thing I always think about is the fact that it might have everything. You know, there's literally not a thing it's missing. This is what people call the complete package. Another thing that also seems to be quite important to people is the fact that it's mind-blowing and you're left breathless at the end of the brake run. Basically, that the entire experience is just a big wow. Those are some of the more subjective criteria. If you look at it more objectively, it's also a lot about fulfilling the need for the park and the actual purpose of the coaster. For a lot of people, a coaster can also be linked with a special experience, something that makes a coaster very personal for you. Now, getting back to VelociCoaster, I think we should cover some of the most essential points and look at whether or not VelociCoaster may just be the perfect roller coaster. Now, based on all the answers that I got when I actually went out and asked people what the perfect roller coaster was, I got all the answers up to 3 main criteria. The first criteria, it fulfills its purpose. The second criteria, it has a fulfilled layout. And the third criteria, the overall rider experience. Of course, before I judge this coaster, I should probably mention that I have actually not ridden VelociCoaster myself. This is mainly based on what other people say about the ride, as well as what the general public opinions are. I mean, I haven't even been to the US yet. Coasters typically have a purpose for their park. There's always a reason that a park chooses to get a specific coaster. It's because they have a certain job to fulfill. For example, when a park gets its first kiddie coaster, it's so a particular age group also have a little coaster to ride. And perhaps for bigger thrilling coasters, it's to get an older and more daredevil-ish target audience into your park to actually ride this thing. Of course, the coaster itself also has a purpose for its type. Not only does a big thrill coaster have to serve the purpose of actually getting people to ride it because it's a thrill coaster, it also has to complete the job as a thrill coaster. When we look at something like Demonin at Tivoli Gardens, that is a thrill coaster that goes upside down 3 times, but in regards to its actual thrill level, it's often looked at as a slightly more intense family coaster. Let's look at whether or not VelociCoaster actually lives up to these 2 points. First of all, for its type, it's a thrill coaster. That's pretty obvious. And based on what people are saying, yeah, it's pretty thrilling. It's certainly not disappointing in any way, and it gives a very immersive experience as well. Parks such as Universal and Disney are very well known for making their coasters incredibly iconic, so that people just know these rides and come from all over the country to ride them, if not the world. And of course, it's very much based on GP acknowledgement. VelociCoaster has definitely lived up to this. It's become an insanely popular roller coaster overall, and I still have not heard a single person be disappointed after getting off it either in regards to how thrilling it actually is.
But the cool thing is that after we got off, we got free churros.
So we can probably say that, yeah, it definitely lives up to the purpose of being a thrill coaster as well as being the park's maybe new main attraction. I'm not actually sure if it's supposed to be their main attraction, but they're certainly posing it like it is. And I don't necessarily think that anyone is going to doubt that this coaster probably did wonders for Universal. There was so much hype for this coaster, and every opinion I've heard so far says that it lives up to the hype and even exceeds it sometimes. So with the first criteria, yeah, it fulfills its purpose.
I like your Kaji.
Whether or not a coaster has a perfect layout is dependent on a lot of things. So let's say that this criteria is about having everything in your layout. For that, we can look at the 5 main forces of a roller coaster. There's positive forces, airtime, hang time, laterals, and the launch force. Those are the 5 main forces that people look for on a ride like this. And once again, based on what people say, yeah, it definitely lives up to it. There are several points throughout the ride that have said to be forceful and pushing you hard into your seat. There are so many different kinds of elements here to actually get these positive forces, as well as the other forces. Airtime is here every now and then, hills, the top hat, the wave turn, and many more. And hang time is definitely not short as well. Just look at this 0G stall. I mean, this is one of the most hang timey sorts of elements there are. At least on a coaster like VelociCoaster. I know some bring more of a floaty experience, but this looks incredibly hang timey. Plus the implement. The implement is said to be very hang timey. Laterals is certainly a thing you can find on this coaster as well. There are several zigzags and fun transitions, underbanked moments, and twists that give sustained, pushing, and whippy laterals throughout the ride. And of course the launch force is found twice. There are 2 launches, a slower one and a big booster, both of which of course give different launch experiences, which is also adding to the variety. Variety is of course also a big important thing for a fulfilled layout. You can have a coaster like Balder, which has a bunch of great airtime, but it's the same over and over again, and that can really kill the ride itself. VelociCoaster constantly does something different. Everything from different types of hills, as well as twists, and of course 4 different types of inversions, all of which are incredibly innovative as well. There are overbanks with different forces, there's a massive top hat as well, which of course gives twice the amount of airtime in a way, and even serves as eye candy for the watchers. I think it's safe to say that VelociCoaster definitely has everything in regards to forces and elements as well.
Boy.
It's gotta be hard to find something that is missing, and if it is missing, it's not necessarily important. You're not gonna find a pretzel loop on this bitch. It certainly has the intensity. Again, as I said, it's a thrilling experience with pretty much everything within the element department. An important thing for a coaster is of course also to keep balance. You can have a bunch of great positive forces in a row, but it's not very good if all your riders black out. You need to constantly throw something different in your riders. Positive forces, then airtime, then some whip, maybe some hang time here. You need to differ from element to element, and I think VelociCoaster absolutely lives up to this. If you just watch a POV, it should be pretty easy to imagine how differentiating the forces are throughout the layout and how quickly it changes from one thing to the next. So I'd also say second criteria is definitely lived up to. The third criteria is the overall rider experience. This is basically everything I haven't mentioned, and of course one important thing is comfort. You can still live up to the first 2 criteria and still have a ride that is incredibly rough. Well, VelociCoaster is not. It's said to be very smooth. Of course it is a brand new intimate as well. I mean, okay, that doesn't always mean smooth, but in this case it's smooth. Not only that, but the overall comfort is also said to be great. The train design and the lap bars within it are said to be absolutely incredible, and I've heard it being called one of the most comfortable coasters on Earth. Of course, you can't have an overall fulfilling experience without theming either. If you've seen a review of this coaster, you probably know that the theming is pretty kick-ass. Everything from the queue line, the velociraptors, this fucking screen of them running, all the audio and all the details, everything seems to be absolutely fulfilling and really immersing you into a well-told story. The story, in fact, is so cool that it even lives into the layout itself. It starts out with you literally being a velociraptor running around inside your containment, and then you finally burst out of your containment through an open gate, which is the second launch, and then you just ravage upon the world or some shit. I don't know. But it's pretty obvious that this coaster has a very fulfilling theme. There's a little bit of theming everywhere. Even the trains themselves are supposed to be a sort of vehicle, which I know I just said that you're supposed to be a velociraptor. Let's just say it's both things. Plus, of course, the location is great. I mean, it's over the water. It's been raved about how great it is with the mosasaur roll over the water. And I gotta say, that looks pretty cool.
That's pretty good.
And of course, the final nail in the coffin for a fulfilled experience are the visuals. Even the off-riders should have something good to look at, some eye candy. With the top hat being visible far away and you finally looking at it, it has this beautiful lights at night and it just looks incredible. You can probably argue that this is one of the coolest looking coasters on Earth. And you really get into the actual Jurassic Park experience as well just by walking around this coaster. So I would say the third criteria is also lived up to. This coaster is probably perfect. But is it the perfect roller coaster? Well, based on the answers, we can say yeah, it is the perfect roller coaster in that regard. It may not be the most intense in the world, and a lot of people probably still aren't gonna call it the world's best coaster, while many others are, because it does everything for them that they need a coaster to do for them. But of course, there still might not be such a thing as a perfect coaster, and that's the thing. Every roller coaster experience is subjective. People look for different things in roller coasters, different experiences, people have different preferences. For For some, yes, this is probably the perfect roller coaster and probably their favorite roller coaster in the world and may just stay that. And for others, it might not be. Others probably prefer something like Steel Vengeance because it has a shitload of airtime. And others probably prefer something like I-305 because they like being crushed by sumo wrestlers. It's very subjective. So what do you think? Is this the perfect roller coaster? Or is there perhaps another coaster that you find perfect? Because please let me know. Me personally, VelociCoaster is my #1 bucket list coaster. I want to ride this more than any other coaster in the world, period. And I really think that this could be my favorite coaster in the world. So you can hear I'm not setting expectations too high. But let me know what you think in the comments below. I personally think that from one perspective, yes, VelociCoaster is definitely the perfect roller coaster. It has finally been fulfilled. It's the first coaster, maybe in my opinion at least, to do that. But it is not for me to say. Hell, I haven't even ridden the thing. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. This was a very interesting video to make, especially because I fucking love this thing, even though I haven't ridden it. Happy New Year and stuff. Yay! Bye.